What's up, everybody? You are watching and listening to Blerd Empire. I am your co-host, ROYCE, along with my dad, Sinbad. You want to say what's up, Dad?
Hey, what's up, man? How y'all doing? I'm sorry. I'm still playing with the screen voice. I can't help it, bro. It's just messing my head up so bad, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I want to apologize for the Father's Day foolery.
We got him for Father's Day. We got him one of those ultra wide 49-inch Samsung screens, so it's blowing his mind right now.
Yeah. I'm blown.
But this is episode 21, and we have a really awesome special guest, Gerald Kaye, who is a storyboard artist / revisionist right now, currently for Marvel Animation Studios.
Bad boy.
Yes.
Bad young man.
So thank you so much.
Bad young man.
Thank you so much, Gerald, for being here.
For having me.
We got a lot of questions because this is really cool. Look, check
so
out.
So much stuff I don't understand.
Right. Exactly.
So much stuff I don't understand, bro.
So we got a lot of questions, but you know, thank you so much for joining us. And huge shout out because we were actually connected through a mutual friend, Miguel Wilson. You've probably heard that name a couple times on this podcast because he's an amazing artist.
Yeah,
done a lot of stuff. He's actually the one responsible for Sinbad's pins. If you guys have bought,
which I'm sorry that I'm not on the road. Because
I know
get people backstage, and I'm sorry I'm not on the road right now. So y'all just come to my house.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'll meet y'all in the front yard, man. Just show you.
We could try and ship it. So thank you, Miguel, for making this connect. Thank you, Gerald, for being here. And before we get started, Dad, for the people who don't know, tell them what Blerd Empire is all about.
Blerd Empire is a combination word black nerd. Black nerd now has become hip. It used to be a thing of shame or hiding in the closet. It was like us coming out the closet. But now it gets you paid. Now it even gets you women. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? Because they know if you're a nerd or blerd, you probably gonna have a job. Because blerds get jobs. Because we think outside the box. So we said, why don't we do a show about the generation? Like I said, I'm 64, my son's in 30s. So we say, let's show the generation of blerds around the world and what it means for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we don't exclude other nerds, but black nerds matter.
Black nerds do matter.
Black nerds do matter.
But it is interesting because the term blerd it's all encompassing now.
Yeah,
in a way. It's kind of taken its own shape, its own life, which is awesome.
Word of love.
It is. Now, Gerald, again, so many questions, but I'm going to keep them contained. And first, because, obviously, especially for young artists out there, they see the name Marvel, or they might see the name DC, but for this instance, they see Marvel Animation, and they're immediately like, okay, how does that happen? How do I get there? And just checking out all the stuff you did. I just saw that you started as a freelancer, or you started as an intern, you were freelancing, and eventually you got the gig at Marvel. So if you could just break down for us kind of like your journey and how you got from point A to point B.
Oh man, I'm like, where do I begin? Do I jump back to like childhood and the infancy?
Hey,
or do I, keep it in the...
Go back as far as...
And when did your voice change to that bass? What age? Hey man, I'm doing Marvel. Mama.
I blame my older brothers.
Give me some animation. Mama.
When you got two older brothers, you kind of start lowering your voice.
Yeah, man.
Exactly. Well, actually, before that, just let some of the people know some of the current projects you're working on first. Just you flaunt it a little bit, and then start that journey.
Before you start that, what's your age? I want to know your age and where you're living and where you're from. Then we get started. Okay.
So I'm 34. Just turned 34.
You look like you're in 20s. You look like a young dude, man. Young dude.
You know what they say. doesn't crack. So
they don't.
Right.
But 34. I'm in North Hollywood right now, but I'm originally from the Bay Area. So I grew up, my first 18 years of life, I was in Hayward, Union City, California.
All right.
Then I came down to SoCal when I started school. And once I realized, if you want to work in animation, you're kind of in LA. I basically stayed. I've been here ever since. So that's been interesting experience. My wife, she teases me all the time because I'm always like, Bay Area's great. I love the Bay, blah, blah, blah. She's like, but where do you live, though?
Right.
No, tell your wife I said the Bay is it. Hold up. Let's get something straight. When I first came to Cali, I went to the Bay, and it was like the Midwest Michigan I was from. I went to LA. I got depressed. I said, I'm going to live in the Bay. They said, no, bro, keep the Bay in your heart, but you got to be in LA. But I'm a Bay brother in my heart. I got the Bay in my heart, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And being born and raised in LA myself, I have noticed that trend, which for me, it's a different perspective where everyone's like, oh, where I come from, so dope. And I'm like, well, then why are you here, though? I think I love LA.
You watch that lone tear just roll down the cheek.
Right.
Like,
Exactly. No, but I get it, though.
Yeah. So, I came down here for school, and I guess I'll just, to hit that first point. Right now I'm working on Spidey and His Amazing Friends. Marvel announced it back in the fall. And it's interesting take because it's, of course, I can't get too much detail about some of these projects, but it's a Spider-Man project that's geared more at a younger audience. And so when you look at some of the screenshots from the press release, you can kind of see like a little more of a playful design, got some interesting proportions going on. And so it's going to be a really interesting and fun project, which is a change of pace because some of the other projects I was on, I did Spider-Man Maximum Venom, which is currently airing on Disney XD. Hopefully it comes to Disney Plus at some point soon. Otherwise, catching on XD. I was on Black Panther's Quest, which is season 5 of Avengers. I was on season 3 and 4 of Avengers. I was on Marvel Rising, which was kind of like their Young Heroes project. So I've just been blessed to be able to roll from like one Marvel project to the other, kind of stay in the family, as it were.
Love it.
So it's been an awesome experience.
Tell me exactly what a revisionist does. First I was trying to say, do you fix those people's storyboards? I mean, because there's storyboards, and then this guy goes, hey, you're saying guys brought you storyboards.
In a manner of speaking, without going too far beyond the proper bounds, you could almost think of a revisionist as a micro miniature director. So what happens is the director has this team of storyboard artists, and they get assigned whatever portion of the script they're going to work on. So it's like, all right, Johnny, you got teaser, you got half of Act A. Susie, you got part of Act B. Timmy, you got like the front half of Act C, et cetera, right? So they'll break up the script. Every artist is on, for the most part, with very few exceptions, they're on a 4-week schedule. So you have 2 weeks for roughs, 2 weeks for cleans. Once they get those cleans in, they roll right on to the next episode that their team's assigned. So in the animation process, there's all these checks and balances as far as execs and supervisors and things like that want to give their feedback and give their input on how the show looks and how it's coming out. And then also there's just how the director himself might feel about what his artist turned in. Mm-hmm. Because the board artists are already rolling on to their next assignment, there's not really time to kick it back to them to do any kind of changes because 4-week schedule, got to keep this train moving. So the revisionist, the director, be like, all right, so-and-so did this section. It's cool, but I feel like there's ways we can make it more exciting. I want you to take a crack at blah, blah, blah. So, hey, free reign. Or other cases, it's a lot more defined. Hey, so-and-so, they made this dude do all his choreography using a bow staff, but we actually found out it's a 3-part staff. Can you kind of rework it so that it still fits what this dude did, but that it's using a 3-part staff? Things like that. Or maybe it's something simple. They're not supposed to be wearing their hats here. Why do you put hats on everybody? Draw everybody without the hats. So it's really like, it really depends on what the episode was, what the artist turned in, and any given day, and also the style of the director you're working with. Because I've worked with directors who, they have a really clear idea in their mind exactly what the change they want to be. And so they'll communicate that to me and have me execute that change, which is awesome seeing them, like the mind of a director, like, okay, he sees the episode flowing like this, boom, boom, boom. Okay, this is how he wants me to kind of jump in and address what needs to be addressed. Where on the other hand, I've worked with directors who are like, do something. I'm like, oh, it's like, yeah, just do something. I'm like, cool. And so I'll just cut loose, and then he'll be like, all right, cool. Now let's change this. Yeah, we can make this part better. That's an interesting idea, but whatever. Yeah. And both of them have their pros and cons, and it's kind of fun and a learning experience either way. On the one hand, you get just insight into just decision making and filmmaking and all the different things that the director's being mindful of. And on the other hand, it's like, all right, get to flex some muscles at, all right, cool, let's do some fight scenes. Let's make Spider-Man do some cool stuff, whatever the case is. So as far as kind of the journey that took me there and brought me there, I came to SoCal for school because I was like, okay, I want to do something art related, not exactly sure. I went to Cal State Northridge. Northridge.
Cool. You're right down the street from us, bro.
Yeah. So I went to Cal State Northridge, and I was like, okay, I want to do something art related. To kind of jump back a little bit real quick, in high school, I continued my love of drawing, doodled and stuff, hung out with my art friends and everything. I was in mural club, so we're like painting stuff on the walls and doing all that. But it didn't really fully click for me, the connection between art and a career. It's like, okay, there's an industry out there that people can make money doing this type of stuff. It didn't really dawn on me yet. But basically, I remember I watched Fooly Cooley one night on Adult Swim. It was like their first time airing it. And I saw Fooly Cooley and I was like, okay, this right here, whatever this is, cool. I want to do that. And so, long story short, I ended up at Cal State Northridge, and I was in their animation department. And first I was doing 3D CG character animation, because I was like, if you want to animate, I guess you have to be an animator. I wasn't yet aware of all the different ways you could apply your skills. Then one semester we had a guest professor who taught a storyboarding class. Now, the thing about CSUN is at the time it was still kind of taking shape as an animation program. So, it's not like every class is available. Like some more established schools, you can get, hey, we have a character design professor. We have like a modeling guy. We have like someone who's over 3D and like technical director type stuff. We have someone who's over boards. Well, CSUN was kind of like, they had a general track and a main track, and then they would try to supplement that the best they could. And so we had a guest professor come who taught storyboarding, and I was like, that right there, no, that's even more specific.
Wow.
Because basically, I always wanted to not just do animation or whatever, but I always had this idea in my head of like telling stories, of being part of the storytelling process, not just the creating aspect. And while character animation is great and you get to like really influence the performance, by the time it gets on your plate, there's so much that's been kind of hashed out or decided. So when this professor introduced me to the world of storyboarding, I was like, wow, that's a huge step closer to being able to kind of shape the narrative and shape the experience. You're kind of like a miniature director in a sense, choosing your shots, deciding your choreography, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I want to do that. And so I refocused and geared my attention towards that. And, it was kind of difficult because, the resources through my university were a little more limited, like I explained, but they were awesome in the sense that they had a really good relationship with other studios, other entities when it came to internships. So my first internship was at Marvel Lionsgate Productions. So that was kind of like my first introduction to a relationship with Marvel in some aspect. And that was like a limited relationship where Marvel and Lionsgate kind of came together to do some direct to DVD movies and whatnot. So I interned on Next Avengers, Heroes of Tomorrow, which was a fun project. Artistically, I didn't get to do a whole lot because intern and whatnot, but it was still like great just seeing just behind the veil and just how the machine operates, and getting to kind of walk and peek over a director's shoulder and ask him questions and all that cool stuff.
Intern's hard for a creative person, ain't it?
Yeah.
It's like
being an intern, dude. I never was an intern because intern is like, I got ADHD. Being an intern, you're like, but you could do. Never mind.
Right. It's like,
never mind.
Don't you dare speak.
Yes.
But then in your mind, you're like, but this could be that moment.
I can do that better.
Like, what if I by saying something, that's what like elevates the career, or it can get you fired? You never really know.
Gotta really, really be careful. And I'm grateful that. Oh, go ahead again.
Oh no, I was just gonna say because what was interesting when you were saying like you were saying if you wanted to be an animator, you thought you had to learn animation.
Right.
I just thought that was interesting when you said that, because I know for me and probably most people who think of animation, they're just like, oh, well, yeah. I mean, if you want to be an animator, you got to animate, but you don't realize all the other different departments that go into the actual animation process. It's not just the process of like the characters moving, but like you were saying, like you found that you love storyboard, like the storyboard aspect of animation. aside from the different departments. So
yeah.
No, I just found that interesting the way you said that, because I was like, well, that is true. Just because you're an animation doesn't mean you're the actual like animator. So to
Right,
speak.
right.
Royce tried to do that. Royce was going to go to school in Florida, man, for animation. I said, dude, you know, animators sit in a room with no what, dude. Animators sometimes have no life. I mean, because I knew a little bit more about it. Because I knew animators. I said, dude, it's this. You want to? I said, Royce, you want to hire the animator.
Yeah.
You want to be creative and hire the animator.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was doing my old, but I was trying to learn how to do Maya and Lightwave.
Oh wow, nice.
You know, the dude told me why. He said, dude, just learn some Toon Boom and stuff like. Learn some basic stuff and let the guys who draw give them your ideas and let them do what they do. And I said, you're right. They do that all day. They do that, like guys like you using Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff. I was gonna have to learn it, but I wouldn't use it again for another 3-4 weeks. I was always gonna be relearning it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing that both of you guys bring up, which is as I was interning, I was starting to, it was really becoming cemented for me just how much of a collaborative industry that animation is. With something like film already is collaborative enough, like y'all already know.
Yeah.
But then with animation, just because of like the sheer, like if you want to do like 10 seconds of something, the amount of like just work that's going into just 10 seconds, you're gonna need help. You know, whether it's you needed a modeler because you're doing something 3D, or you needed an environment person because you're not the best environment person, but you're great at character stuff. You know, all those different elements where you need a hand to pitch in. So I was seeing that, you know, firsthand, where dope background designers throwing down their dope backgrounds, and that's like where they put 100% of their stuff, as opposed to, you know, and granted, I have friends who are more of the generalist route where they do a little bit of a lot of things, and that's how their studios function. But basically I was seeing that and, okay, cool. You know, I see the lane that I want to kind of hop in. So I went from Marvel Lionsgate, interned later, my next internship, which was like my last semester at CSUN, graduated in 08, was at BET. They were actually starting up an animation department. And that
Wait,
one,
they paid you? BT paid you?
unfortunately, this was before the big, big push for.
Yeah.
This is before the big push for paying interns. So I was there on passion and, you know.
Hooray.
Black man.
It was an awesome experience though, because it was it had a similar feeling, at least in my brain, to what I imagined a startup would be like. Because they were kind of building this department from scratch, and it was great that like they had this vision in their mind of like wanting to do like prime time animation. So I remember one of the shows that they brought to our campus before I interned there, it was one of the things that kind of caught my attention. It was like this action adventure series they wanted to do called like Hannibal, and like Vin Diesel was like attached, and they had like some test animation.
I remember
like,
that.
Yeah, it was super.
Remember
like,
that, man.
stylish.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, like they have some interesting stuff cooking up there. They also had like some stuff that they wanted to do with like Black Panther for Marvel, and so it's like yet again, like Marvel kind of came my way again.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you got a chance to work or see, because they had that Black Panther animated series that was based off of that one.
The JR.
Yeah, the story arc. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I got to see like a little bit of that when it was cooking, and kind of see some of the conversations that were going on. And so that experience definitely brought me some really great relationships that directly led to my path moving forward. Basically, I met two people there who kind of set me up for my next whatever. And one of them was Evan Burse, who was like my direct report. And so he was like kind of, he was going out and kind of like headhunting, so to speak, as far as like development goes, seeing interesting projects, interesting artists who might be worth bringing in to, you know, kind of get with their program. And then the other person I met was Dennis Cowan, who was the SVP over their animation endeavor that BET was doing. And so just being able to kind of like see what he does, see someone who operates on that level. And of course, you know, black dude, two black men, so it's inspirational. Yeah, awesome. And of course, Dennis's career, I was so oblivious at the time to all the stuff that he had done, from, you know, writing and comics and, you know, Milestone Entertainment and all that. So that was awesome. But basically that led to my relationship, or that led to me working at Hasbro later. And then later on led to me kind of coming in on the production side through Evan at Marvel. And so it was really just these opportunities and these relationships. And of course, you know, throughout this whole period of time, honing my craft and studying and finding out what I know and what I don't know and trying to bridge those gaps that ultimately put me in the room at Marvel. And then once I was there, I was like, okay, now it's time to perform. You're here as a production dude. You're doing your art on the side, you're studying, but you still got to be an excellent production dude. Otherwise, no one's going to care about your, I want to draw, I want to storyboard. It's like, okay, that's nice, but do your job. So it was kind of balancing.
How many years did that take? What was that? You say from intern to that point, how many years did that take, or how much time did that take?
So that was, I was on the production side for, I want to say about 5 years.
Okay.
I went from, that's like another story, but here we go.
Okay.
Tell it all.
When I graduated from CSUN, and this is one of those things that it's like something that I kind of talk to, like I've had the opportunity to talk to a few younger artists or a few like fresh grads or whatever. And it's something that I definitely impart with them, because when I graduated from CSUN, I had a certain perception of, okay, the only thing standing between me and an industry gig is like just the application. Like I'm ready, like SpongeBob, like I'm ready. Right? But sometimes it can be kind of hard to recognize the places where you still need to grow. And so it was kind of an experience of, okay, I thought I was going to jump right in, but apparently that's not happening. Where do I still lack, or what do I still need to work on and improve?
So humbleness, you're saying like a humbleness.
Yeah, it definitely takes a level of self-awareness and humility to, you know what, maybe I'm not the biz. Maybe I got to learn some stuff. And so I was in production from, before I was in production, I was doing some workshops. There's this program called Animaction that went through the LA Unified School District doing animation workshops with middle schoolers and high schoolers. And so it was interesting because, you know, it's the school district, and so they don't have the most extravagant budget. And so they're really kind of particular about the programs that they bring in. And so for us to even be able to go there to do art with these kids, we kind of had to do an educational component first. And so we do anti-tobacco training for like a day. And then we transition to, all right, guys, now it's time to animate. We're going to do animated PSA, public service announcements. And so we'd spend the next half of a day, and then the next day, just like, it was like a mad dash to the finish line, teaching them, okay, here's some animation paper, here's some crayons, here's some colored pencils, here's some pens, here's how you're going to put it on the pegboard, or here's how you're going to flip, we're going to take it to the machine.
Don't vape.
Yeah, that's right, kids. Don't vape, stay in school, don't do drugs, you know, all that stuff. And it was a really like interesting experience. Just, all right, you know, just keep studying, keep driving, you know, keep drawing. I bring up kind of Freudian slip with driving, because I was literally driving around LAUSD. Like, all right, our next assignment's at Culver City. All right, our next assignment's in the Valley. All right, you know, what, just wherever.
It's like a field trip.
Definitely. Like, and make sure you show up before 7 a.m. because that's when school starts. You know, whatever. So it was rough, but that time I was like continuing to learn. There were some awesome resources that I got my hands on at that time. Then I got a job doing production at Hasbro, thanks to Dennis and his wife, Kathy, at the time. They both kind of recommended me, or at least put my resume in the pile for a production assistant job at Hasbro on G.I. Joe Renegades. So that kind of got me into the industry officially, as it were. Worked on that for a year. We were supposed to get 2 seasons, but then it only ended up being 1. So I was at a point of decision. Okay, what do I do next? At the time, I was feeling a bit more confident because I'd taken some time. I'd studied, I'd been drawing, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to go for another production job. I think I'm ready for storyboards. I think I'm ready for storyboard revision work. And then I think that was right around, that would have been 2010, 2011, for whatever reason, whatever was going on at the time. It was like dry, nothing anywhere. And so I would send stuff out, I would try and get in touch with people, and it was like almost no one was hiring. And so that was like a kind of a process that I had to work through as well. And so when 2014 rolled around, that was when I got the opportunity through Evan for production assistant at Marvel. And in that interim, I'd been doing like small projects as far as like someone needs something drawn, did some stuff with this one company that needed digital media, artwork processing and other things like that. They need technical experience, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of like, okay, stay on track, stay focused throughout this whole period of time.
You were freelancing, you were making your money.
Yeah.
Because Royce was asking that question, could you work outside?
Yeah, so that's a wonderful thing about the animation industry. In most situations, in most circumstances, you're kind of allowed to freelance, do other projects. You know, if your main obligations are not being affected, you're kind of free to kind of shape your career however you see fit through projects and relationships, et cetera, et cetera. So, cool. Yeah, so had some stuff like that kind of through that gap. But yeah, wasn't until 2014 that I came into the Marvel fold. And then it was another year after that of, okay, I'm here. I'll just be the best PA that I can, continue to grind. And then they offered me a revisionist job. And I was like, yes, absolutely. I'll gladly take that. And started working on the artist side in 2015.
That's awesome. So what kind of things do they have you do as a production assistant, like in their own? Because for me, like I hear PA, I think, how it relates to the film world, running, getting coffee, moving cars, things like that.
Yeah.
How does that work in the animation industry?
So the animation industry, and this is something that I am thoroughly grateful for, the animation industry, the PA side is a lot more structured and has a lot less of kind of like the live action kind of chaos element of you never know what's coming your way.
Right.
With animation PAs, you're either assigned to a specific duty or you're assigned to the whole pipeline. It depends on how the show's set up. But basically, because the artists are so focused on whatever it is that their discipline is, they need this whole part of the machine to help keep things moving smoothly, help deadlines continue to get hit, et cetera, et cetera. And so production managers, coordinators, PAs are there to kind of like facilitate that and lubricate that. So it's like, okay, we're making sure that artists have their assignments so that they're not sitting around not knowing what to work on or whatever. We're making sure that people have the most recent version of the script. We're making sure that everybody shows up for a certain meeting. Hey, we're having a design handout, so therefore make sure that this person's there, make sure these resources are available, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really more of like a producer. You're like within production, you're basically a miniature version of a producer, and then it just scales up as you kind of evolve on that track to ultimately being like the line producer or associate producer or whatever. So yeah, I remember when I was at Hasbro, I was kind of involved in a lot of pieces of the puzzle. I was tracking with the director and the board artist, so making sure that scripts were being, hey, how is so-and-so doing on his portion of the script? Okay, he's got this much done, or he's working on his cleans or his roughs, and we're in the third week. Okay, so we can expect everything to come in the fifth, things like that. Setting up design meetings, setting up stuff with the animatic editors and all that. And so that's one end of the spectrum. Other projects that I've been on, it's been super focused where, hey, you're only going to be focusing on just being a liaison between the director and maybe his board team, or maybe you're just a liaison between the color department and the executive, the executive producers or the, supervising director, et cetera, et cetera. So while there's like a variance, it's a lot more structured, which I was grateful for while I was in that.
Nice. That's awesome. Now, because I'm sure listeners are curious, how did you actually get into the door, like as a PA into a company like Marvel? Like, was it recommendation? Did they reach out to you? How did that work?
So I'd say that it's probably significantly different from maybe something like the comic or the live action side, because with animation, there's definitely like a structure that a lot of studios and a lot of organizations kind of adhere to. So in most cases, like there's the hiring portal where they post their jobs. There's the hiring let's say the producers or whatnot who are looking to fill various positions. And then from that standpoint, it then breaks down into relationship, your resume, and then just whatever process. So relationship, resume, and process. So with me, there is the resume aspect of, okay, do you have the experience that somehow relates to being a PA in this organization? Because at the end of the day, an animation studio is an animation studio, and they want to know, are you going to be able to, work in file manager and, make sure that designs are being updated properly, et cetera, et cetera? Are you going to be able to draft an email that doesn't look like it was written by a high schooler or like a middle schooler? Can you properly address a group of individuals and convey information? Are you professional? What's your track record like? Et cetera, et cetera. So from that aspect, when it comes to someone trying to get into the door, you could have worked entirely corporate, not even in entertainment, but if you can prove and establish that you have the correlating skills, you're on the exact same footing as anybody else, really.
I'm so glad I'm an actor, not you. I'm serious. You almost got to be a jack of all trades. You got to be able to network. Got to be able to do your job. Got to know when to shut up. Got to know when to talk up. It's almost like you go to a job. Tell me if I'm wrong now, Gerald. I don't know what this job. When I get there, let me see what they're saying I'm do. It's almost like I get there. What do they need me to do here? And I got, okay, let me adapt to that. We're acting. I show up. I act. Now sometimes you're producing whatever, but it's not like, hey man, but this time we want you to say these words. You're only gonna be saying words in this movie. You're only gonna be saying words. You're not gonna be doing anything. It's like in the animation world. Just talking to Royce about it, and there's so many. Okay, when people go to a movie, they go, "God, I want to be an animator." I said, "Did you see that credit roll? How many people were involved in this? Did you stay? We always stay because of Royce. Did you stay for the credit roll that goes almost as long as the movie?"
Oh yeah.
I said, "You want to be which one? You did the hair? You did the water? It's bigger than something you're saying. I'm just going to be an animator." Would you suggest somebody specialize in something, or do you want to be able to do everything, or do you want I'm a jack of all trades, but I mastered this part of it?
So it really depends on your inclination. And where your interests and your strengths lie, because the answer to that question is also going to determine what kind of studios you work at. At a more established studio like Marvel or something like Disney or Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, places like these, they tend to operate more in terms of specialists, and so they want board artists, they want character designers, they want prop designers, they want color key artists or color stylists. They want background painters separate from the color key and the whatever. They want people for these different functions. And so if that's something that you're comfortable with, and you do want to be the type of artist that just wants to max out on a discipline, it's okay to do that. But at the same time, there are different types of studios that they value generalists, and to them, a generalist is a stronger proposition than someone who's more specialized, because they might have let's say you're at a company that does like short form stuff for like advertisement, or they do hey, we have a movie coming out that's going to have like a short animated sequence, blah blah blah. That studio might love to have someone on their team who he knows how to model, he can rig, he can texture, he can do a little bit of lighting, he could do a little bit of fluid dynamics or simulation, cloth sim, et cetera, et cetera. All right, we'll take him, because whatever comes our way, because that type of studio, that type of environment, it's the projects for them that are the wild card, the random element. And so having a player on deck who can jump in, no matter what comes their way, that's super beneficial. Somewhere like Marvel, it's like all you're going to be doing is what they hired you for. So it's really kind of confusing almost in some circumstances for their hiring people, or for their the people in the decision-making process, when they look at an artist and they're like, all right, but what does he do? All right, but what does he want to do? And it almost could possibly, not always, but could possibly present a hindrance to someone in that position.
That's interesting, because that part sounds pretty familiar, like for me working as like a freelance videographer versus like if I was working at a studio in the system, whether like with videography, my client will be like, okay, well, can you direct, shoot, edit, color correct, sound design, do visual effects, like all that stuff in one. And you're just kind of like, yeah, cool. Here's $200. You're kind of like, okay. Versus
like, get it done tomorrow. And
right.
But can you get it to me? Because I have found out people don't respect videographers, animators. First of all, how hard it was, those algorithms, that wasn't capable. Just 6 months ago, that wasn't available. So I think people watch stuff. That's why I think you need somebody who understands animation a little bit. So I go like, let me compliment you on how hard that is. Although I need you to do it, let me compliment you. I know what I'm asking you to do is difficult. I saw the movie. I saw this. Why can't you do it? I saw this in the movie.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree.
Yeah. And like you were saying with building, and one of your points, you said building a relationship for somebody who's trying to come up. How do you even begin that process? What is that even like to build those relationships?
So, and it's funny because it's like, even though I'm not the best when it comes to networking, because to me that's always like that nut to crack, like, oh, the networking nut. But still, right. There's things that even someone like me can do. And first, it's cultivating the relationships like at your level, your peer level. So let's say you're in like school, university. All right, there's other kids in your department. There's other folks who are around you who are trying to do the same thing, who are also trying to improve their skills, get into the industry, et cetera, et cetera. Don't dismiss them. Don't count them out. Don't kind of look at yourself as either better than or less than. It's build those relationships. What might there be opportunities to work on with them? What knowledge can you share with them so that you can, grow together? Maybe ask them some questions about things that they're better at than you, so that you can also grow and improve or whatever. Hey, maybe there's an opportunity coming. You heard about an open door for internships or, some kind of development program. Why don't you spread the word to some of those people instead of, okay, well, I'm going to keep it to myself and hopefully they find out about it. If not, cool, better odds for me.
I call it the principle of nobody can take something from you that belongs to you.
Exactly.
And I believe success begets success. I believe that, hey man, you do this, I do this. I'm going to tell you about this project. Look, I want to get it, but I at least got to tell you about it, man. Because you can't take what belongs to me. I mean, that's my philosophy in life. You can't take what belongs to me.
I agree. And so it's like, there's like that element, at least, when it comes to nurturing those relationships on your level, it's like having a degree of security to know, hey, yes, in the grand scheme of things, we're competing, but it doesn't mean I got to hate this person or I have to be antagonistic towards this person. I can actually help this person out. And in turn, they might feel inspired or, feel upon themselves to help you out. And so that's one way. Next, it's kind of like, okay, there's events, it's kind of weird with this landscape that we're in now, as far as like quarantine, all this stuff, but
there's always Zoom.
There's always Zoom, right? But like when you have events like these, and I'm sure like even Zoom events, they probably have opportunities for Q&A. It's really taking the time, whether it's a portfolio review or a Q&A or some kind of session, to try to engage meaningfully, if that makes sense. It's like asking questions because you're really trying to learn and grow, or asking questions because you're really trying to get some kind of knowledge or value that you're lacking or something. And then expressing the genuine expression of gratitude and the genuine follow-up, where you're genuinely curious, okay, well, how do I take that information further? Or can you give me more insight and things like that? And in many cases, those individuals on the other end, they're willing to kind of provide that information, help out, or whatever they can do, if it's kind of approached in a proper way, with respect. And, I bring that up because it's like sometimes you go to these things, or, you attend, or you're maybe on the panel or whatever the case is, and you'll hear someone who's asking a question because it seems like they're like, okay, I'm going to ask this so I can look a certain way, kind of
Right.
make myself look
You already
good.
know the answer. I hate I hate people ask questions like this. We go to NAB and stuff. I'm like, man, why'd you even bother? You just want somebody how smart you are. Next time, do your own panel. Why don't you do your own panel, man?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like that type of question or that type of engagement, I feel like, and y'all probably already know and feel the same way. It's like there's not really much of a desire to really. I don't want to follow up with that type of person. You know, it's like, okay, they got what they wanted. They looked good in front of the crowd, or whatever. Good job for you. Hope you're doing all right. And so, as a person who's like, to kind of gear towards the person who's aspiring or not, or trying to advance, it's like, think about the way that you're engaging with people, the questions you're asking, the kind of follow-up you do, whether or not you're even taking the time to send a thank you email or, hey, you came to our school. I just want to say thanks. You looked at my portfolio. It really gave me, the feedback I needed to fix a few things I was working on, et cetera, et cetera. Even if that person doesn't respond or whatever, it already positions you in their mind in a different way to where it separates you from the packet and builds a habit or a track record of kind of professionalism, because you want to conduct yourself as a professional, at the end of the day.
Absolutely. No, I like that. I like that because I can relate to that a lot, even with like my experience in film school. And let me tell you, film students are annoying. They all think they're geniuses because they know how to slowly push in on an emotional scene. But I agree though, as far as like that networking, because you do have those students who you could tell that they're just off on their own. They already feel like they're the next Spielberg or whatever, and they just got it going. But then, like for me, I networked a lot with my peers, and majority of them I still work with today, and we all help each other with our projects, and it's really amazing. And it's just like there might be somebody like, hey man, I'm working on this, are you down for this? Or like, hey man, I'm here, do you want to help? Or I could be like, hey, I got this going, let's do this together. And being able just to pull from people and connect, because like you said, it's like you're building off of those relationships that you already created that foundation for. And it's like once you pretty much set the standard, that's like, okay, this person's cool, they work hard, they're not a jerk. That definitely can go a long way. So I think that's really great and really valid to know, especially because like as creatives, a lot of us are more introverted and shy and things like that. So it might not even be ego or whatever that's holding us back. It just could just be like that nervousness, like, oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't, or I don't want to mess it up. But yeah, I think it does take, you got to come out of your shell a little bit to do that. Because me personally, I was insanely shy as a kid, and I still am today. But it's like I had to push myself to come out of that comfort zone, because closed mouths don't get fed. You know what I'm saying?
Like most of the time, I think everybody wants to be a superstar. Everybody wants to be a superstar. I want to be Michael Bay. I want to be this. Most of the time, just like in the band, you'll be a team player. Everybody wants to be that nice guy who can rip in the front. Most of the time, you're playing rhythm guitar. You're supporting the rest of the band. If you get the chance to break out, some guys will break out because of their skill level. But the majority of people, if you can be a great team player, I think you can get recalled. People go, hey, let's work with so-and-so. People like this, say another guy has equal ability as Gerald, but the other guy's hard to work with. Or say the other guy got more skills than Gerald, but Gerald easy to work with.
Right.
And Gerald get the job done. They're like this. I wish he wasn't a jerk, but he is so talented. But let me call Gerald. Yeah. Because Gerald's talented, and he'll get the job done and be a team player.
Right.
Yeah. And just kind of like an animation kind of like connection to that. There's times where you have artists turning in projects that are going to be kind of compiled, right? And added to this giant piece, especially when it comes to storyboarding.
Yeah.
And there have been times like as a revisionist, it's like, the director would be like, yeah, I know this is going to be an annoying one, but this is what we got to do today, because an artist turned in their section and they did it in the wrong format, or they did it in Photoshop where we work in Storyboard Pro, or they did it, but every layer is flattened. And so you need to make one change, but now you have to actually manually erase some element and like kind of get in the weeds. Or, hey, sorry, it's not numbered. Hey, they didn't drop in the dialogue, things like that. And yeah, in some cases it's like, okay, can we find someone who doesn't do those things and we'll just use them instead? In other cases, maybe they do still work with that person, but you don't want to be the type of artist or the type of professional who or who your bosses are annoyed with the work that you're turning in, but they just have no choice but to use your work anyway. That it's not, you want to bring joy to your bosses as far as when they think about the assignment that's going to come from you, they know it's going to be done, they know it's going to be on time, they know it's going to be in the right format, they can just drop it in and get to work.
How do you work in this game? It's like sending in the script, sending in music. How do you not send the right format? How do you F it up so bad to not have another job because you couldn't even do the one thing? You had one job to do. How do you survive in this business doing that?
And how do people kind of turn in things to that extent sometimes?
That's a heavy job. What you just told us. That dude, that's a heavy. You're like that gatekeeper. You're the one like, wow. You're the gatekeeper. Hey man, it's almost like in music. Can you replay this? Can you play every instrument? Can you redo the keys? Can you redo the guitar? Can you redo the bass? You're like that last please. So that's a heavy job, man. I commend you. That's dude. That means you put your time in, bro.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's a lot of trust.
It is, and that's something that I'm recognizing more and more as like the seasons go on. Just I remember in the very beginning, so the first project that I did revisions on was Avengers Assemble Season 3. I started halfway through the season. That's when I transitioned from being a production assistant to being a revisionist. And Avengers is one of those shows where it's almost like you're getting thrown to the wolves just because there's so many characters, so much action, and every episode they want it to feel like, at least that's the ambition. You want it to feel like the movie every episode. So some kind of huge fight. All 5 Avengers are going to town on whoever it is, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's like, all right, Gerald, you accepted this job. Let's get to work. And just really getting comfortable with drawing all these characters and things like that. But as time went on, I kind of started to feel my style more, see where I can take liberties, and okay, this is the note, but if I do it like this, it's still addressing the note while still adding my own flair, and different things like that. But yeah, so turning in stuff, it's weird because on the one hand, you have, hey, this is the show, this is the program that we're working in, et cetera, et cetera. On the other hand, you might have a few of your board artists might be freelancers, or you might have given a portion of the script to like a freelance artist, or maybe a number of portions. And so there, it can be tough sometimes to quality control as far as process. It's like, okay, this person, I just had a flashback. One time someone used a later version of the program because we work in Storyboard Pro. Someone used someone used version 5 and we were still using version 4 in the studio. And so it was like, okay, basically you can't open a later version in a earlier version, but you can open an earlier version, a later version. So we had to somehow find a way to take this artist section and drop it into the older version, scene by scene, panel by panel, layer by layer, and somehow make it work. So there's problem solving like that sometimes. And in some cases, I feel like that kind of, we suck it up and we deal with it because it's like, well, did the person do the job? Yes. Did they do it well? In some cases, yeah, they turned in some good work. They just turned it in the wrong way. All right, revisionist, this is why we hire you. This is where you prove your valor. Let's make this work. And we kind of salvage bad situations when, in cases like those.
You ever call people like that? You ever call like, yo, man? I mean, it's not that kind of business. You do that like, yo, dude, we loved your work. Could you have done what we asked you?
Sometimes that happens with like the directors if it's something particularly like, we're like, hey, like the director would get on the phone with his board artist, be like, hey, you did X, Y, and Z. Don't do X, Y, and Z again. In other cases, we just kind of take that deep sigh and then just keep it rolling.
Wow. That's crazy. So that person might not ever known. So I'm saying is, if you revise somebody, they might not ever known what they put you through. So they might put somebody else through that over and over.
Yeah, which is one of those things. That's why I feel like it's really beneficial. Not that it's necessary, but for me, it was beneficial to be on the production side first because I got to experience some of those pain points where, hey, here's the boards that came in. Okay, someone's going to have to fix that. Sometimes it's me. Yikes. Okay, when I become a board artist or a revisionist or whatever, don't do that. Don't ever make anybody have to go through this, et cetera, et cetera.
You ought to do some
Nice.
seminars, man. Y'all think down the road.
Maybe
You ought to
that
do
could be
some
helpful.
That would
seminars
be.
because I think you can
This is
save a
great. Yeah.
lot of people. Because I know Nima Barnett, who's a film director,
Hmm.
when I was doing Different World, would make us direct the episode, whether just
Oh,
running
wow.
back to your trailer. When you're late, look what you did to people. When you don't know your lines, look what you did to people. When you get the wrong wardrobe, look what you did, and you realize this world is so much bigger than me. So, like you
Yeah,
say, it's a guy doing. Just ask a couple more questions. What version? All it takes is a couple more questions. We're all busy,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not that. Hey, man, give me. You almost should have a little list. Here's my list I ask every time you get ready to do a project. Almost a storyboard person. Okay, here's my list. Let me ask you everything. So I already have a format, so I can at least have a half a shot of giving you everything you need.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, that'd be probably a helpful idea or
Yeah,
helpful way to kind of progress and move
especially with the
things.
young ones before they get in
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get bad
Absolutely.
habits. You know, just
Yeah.
don't be that dude. Don't, it's
Yeah.
just called "Don't Be That Dude" section.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, which again, I didn't even think about, where it's like when you mention storyboard artists, like you think, okay, this is a storyboard artist for the whole thing or for the whole episode, but to not even think about, okay, you're just a storyboard artist for like these 5 pages, and then
Yeah,
like
yeah,
to break that down, and now it makes sense because obviously, as big as Studios Marvel is, they need that quick turnaround time. So you need all these artists. Is it the same? I'm assuming it's the same for Revisionist, right? So how you have storyboard artists for different sections, you have revisionists for different sections as well.
So the revisionist process or the revisionist breakdown is a little bit different to where depending on the project, you still might have a few revisionists, but
Mm-hmm.
we tend to either be paired with the director
Mm-hmm.
or kind of just the pool of revisionists that if you're available, things come to you. So on most shows, the directors switch off on episodes. So it's like this person's directing all the even episodes, this person's directing all the odd episodes, and the supervising director just kind of, make sure that's cohesive and, things kind of flow and that things are all the, same style, same tone, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of projects that I've been on at Marvel, it's like I've been paired up with a certain director and I've been on his team, which has been great to kind of get used to working with that director, see their flow or whatnot. And then other seasons I was paired with the other director, and so it was like cool, don't get too comfortable, switch things up.
Right.
Then I've also been in situations like I think during Marvel Rising I was just in the pool of revisionists, and so hey, you're free, cool, we're gonna have you talk to so and so and do X,
gotcha.
Y, and Z. But yeah, you tend to kind of just be like that other hand that the director needs, just there, waiting in the wings to jump and grab whatever needs to be grabbed.
Yeah. What's the turnaround for you guys?
It's kind of deadline based, so it really depends on, all right, we're like right now we're in like revision week, so we have like a week after the board artist turned it in to kind of like make some other changes, or hey, right now we're in the little gap in between when we've had the animatic review and when animatic review notes need to come in. So now we're adjusting all the changes that maybe the writers, have laid on us thanks to, watching the animatic, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's a lot of different moments in the animation pipeline that kind of dictate and determine our turnaround, to where sometimes it's, hey, you've got a week. Sometimes, hey, you've got a couple of days, things like that.
Nice.
It seems like it takes a certain amount of guys who have a high level of discipline and a deadline driven. Because remember, I get ADHD, brother. I'd probably be like, yo, man, I'm sorry about the format. I'm sorry I didn't even turn it in. I didn't know the day was the deadline. Dude, it's almost be careful what you ask for. Your job is almost, I want to be an animator, I want to work in this world, but be careful what you ask for, because if you get it, it's a lot on you. It's almost like this. Once you've done all the work you've done, once you've done all the stuff you've done, like, hey, you're here now. Nobody's holding your hand. I hired you for this gig. I heard you were good for it. And when you jump in, you're just jumping in. Like acting,
Yep.
there's always somebody around you. In the film business, there's always somebody around you. In your world, like, you might be in a room by yourself, but not might be. You are in the room by yourself a lot. And if you ain't getting it done, it's just me, and I messed this up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You feel that sometimes. It's like, I know, like that animatic review is coming up on this day. We have to export it so that we can, build it into like the full project or whatever. So I know that Thursday's just looming over my head, or that Friday's just looming over my head, and I'm looking at, the assignment in front of me, like, okay, what pace am I at? How long did it take me to do those 3 scenes I did yesterday? Okay, cool. I've got 10 more. Okay, I'm gonna have to kick it up. Things like that.
Tell us about your failures, man. Tell us about the ones be like this. I'm done. I'm out the business. No, me serious, because kids need to know you can make mistakes and come back. But we all got that moment. Tell me about the one where you're like this. I jacked this up.
Thankfully, I haven't had any that extreme, but I have had moments along the way where it's like I've had so to kind of like preface all this, I feel like working as an artist, whatever capacity, whether you're a storyboard artist or animator, blah, 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 even musicians, I feel like to an extent, it's almost like you've become like a bodybuilder or a personal trainer, because there's never a time where you're like, you know what? I think I'm buff enough. I'm just going to stop lifting. I think I'm good. It's like,
kind of like me. Kind of like me.
See on that definition,
Right.
But I feel like you're constantly, on this spectrum of like growth and then evaluation and then realizing more room for et cetera, et cetera. So throughout my career at Marvel, there have been times where it's like, I've had directors say, hey, I really need you to kick this particular element of the way you draw up, or I really need to work on this. With storyboarding, there's so many disciplines kind of rolled into one, where like me and my buddy talk about this. It's almost like you're the director, you're the cinematographer, you're the editor, because now in Storyboard Pro, you do your own timing. Okay. You're also the animation guy, but then with the way that modern boards are, especially in action adventure, which is what I've worked in, you're kind of the layout department too. So your perspective and the way that you actually laid out the shot matters a whole lot more than it does in something like feature animation, TV animation does. Et cetera, et cetera. There's so many different layers that are stacked on top. And so it's this whole deck of skills that you have to constantly work to improve. So there have been times where it's like, yeah, Gerald, like some draftsmanship stuff is lacking. I need you to kick that up. Or, hey, right now the figures and the poses you have going on are just still not feeling fluid enough. They're still not feeling loose enough. This doesn't work for me. I'm gonna need you to, just work on that. I'm gonna redo it, but just next time don't let that happen. Things like that. And it's moments like those where, just like any critique, there's kind of like that gut punch in the beginning. You're like,
how good we are.
Yeah, it's like that.
We almost, and although it's good criticism, because nobody's perfect.
Right.
Even the guy that's asked you to do it, there's somebody think his game ain't up. So we're always like, the hardest part is gonna get that chip off your shoulder. Mm-hmm. But somebody says you got more in you, and there's 2 ways to take it. Sometimes somebody's just messing with you, but sometimes it's like, all right, man, okay, he thinks I got game. I tell people, change how someone's talking to you. Instead of saying he didn't like what he did, no, he thinks I have more.
Right.
And I'm gonna give him more. I'm gonna give him more. I just want to give, because there's a lot of young animators who are watching this. Minnesota. Why am I tripping? The coach, famous Vince Lombardi, and he was talking to a guy ended up being all pro, and he kicked him off the field. He said, "You stink." And this man's 6'7", 260, 270, and he comes in the locker room, he's crying. And Lombardi told him, "Look, man, I need you to be my leader. You have more in you. I didn't kick you off because that wasn't good enough. That was good enough for somebody else. But for you, I need you. I need to be able to holler at you so I can holler at other people." After that, 5 years all pro, he realized, he sees something in me. And that's why I think sometimes if you, a young animator, a young whatever, take it as, I have more in me.
Right.
I have more in me, so I can give it more.
That's interesting, because like it's something that me and my buddy kind of talk about from time to time, just the whole idea of like kind of cultivating talent and mentorship.
Yeah.
There's so many ways and areas in which, just in general, like not even specifically to a particular studio, just a culture of that being sort of missing. Like, who's taking the time to like, they have who has a team that is taking the time to like, okay, this person, here's how I can make them better. This person, here's how I can make them better, et cetera. If you have higher ups who are mindful of that and who are doing that, that's something to hold on to and use that to improve, instead of being crushed and demoralized, because that's a sign that they care a lot more than maybe some other folks. Because some people might just take the assignment all right, cool, thanks, and go on their way. Maybe they change the whole thing when
and never call you again.
Never call you again or whatever, and you don't know where it is you're lacking or whatever. So in those times, even though, wind, left my chest, I was like, all right, well, I mean, I got to work, so I better get better, and just keep grinding, and studying, because you never stop studying. In this biz, you are going to learn until you're dead. So
right. Yeah, definitely. Now, I did see that you worked as a storyboard artist. Was that on the a Marvel Spider-Man animated series?
Yeah.
As
So
actual storyboard artist?
Yeah, so while I was doing Avengers, I did some freelance boards for Spider-Man. This was early on. So season 1 and then season 2. So that was an awesome experience, because I would have to do my day job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe on my lunch break, I'm thinking about, okay, this is the script I was given.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
I might do this, and this with it. Come home, shake out the hand real quick, flex, stretch it out, and then get to work on this section that I was now responsible for. And so it was an awesome learning experience. The director, he was very much like, hey, have at it, do what you want to do. A lot of freedom there, so that was cool. And it was a fun show. Like, it was my first time really getting to play around with Spider-Man and all the wonderful, spectacular things he can do.
Right.
Spider-Man.
Yeah. Because as a storyboard artist, like, it's now your responsibility to come up with how things are going to look, more or less.
Exactly.
Right? For the show. That's awesome. And I also think it's cool how, like, it seems so you can have your like your job that you're actually doing at Marvel, but so they give you the freedom to be like, hey, well, on your off time, you want to try this real quick?
Yeah, it was a lot more free towards the beginning of that of my processing time there. They still do that to a certain extent and within certain parameters, but generally speaking, I could, let's say, be at Marvel but freelancing for DreamWorks or freelancing for Nickelodeon.
Right.
If you're meeting deadlines, cool.
Yeah, we don't care what you do.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, do you see yourself storyboarding another project anytime soon?
So that's the tricky thing, because I kind of, after I did the last episode of Spider-Man that I did, it was like the last. I had a portion of episode 26 of season 2. I was kind of running into a situation where I was like overtaxing my arm. Like, I was going hard in the day, just killing these Avengers assignments or whatever is on my plate. But then I wasn't properly resting and kind of taking the time to let myself recuperate. And I was going into like the wee hours of the night working on Spider-Man stuff.
Is there injury? Is there, like, say, tennis elbow for tennis?
There is absolutely.
Is there carpal tunnel? Is there something that can happen?
There's a lot of different things that can potentially happen. Some people do get hit with carpal tunnel. For me, I was getting kind of some stuff in my forearm, almost like tennis elbow. Yeah. There's stuff that can happen with shoulders, necks, back. It really depends on how you're working, the type of work you're doing, and the type of setup that you have. And so I was starting to realize, okay, this whole double duty thing, there's a definite trade-off. You get the benefit of some extra cash here and there, but it adds up. So that kind of slowed me down as far as wanting to continue pursuing that. And then as far as revisionist versus storyboard artist, right now I kind of was mentioning it to Royce before the show began or whatever. I've got a 2-year-old now. She just turned 2 yesterday.
I was going to ask you if you got a family, because being a single animator, being a single anything, because Royce got the new child. When you're single, man, I burned at 5 a.m. and then when you meet a woman, she's, oh my God, you're an animator? Oh, I love how you draw. And then after a while, so you're going to be up all night?
Right.
All night?
Yep.
Then the baby crying, want to come and hang out with you? And yours is only 2 now. Wait till 5 and say, Dad, let me draw that. And you're like, okay, all right, that's a big project.
Yeah. So it's like, me and my wife, we just celebrated 9 years. My daughter just turned 2. So it's like family stuff to me, there's like a certain balance that I want to maintain.
Yes.
And then especially on top of that, I'm working on my own projects and developing independent projects. So right now, being a
We're going to talk
revisionist,
about that too. Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that.
Yeah.
cool. Right now, being a
that.
revisionist is perfect for those needs. I can still be, express my creativity through storyboarding, but I can also still have a lot of time with my family, and still have a lot of time to develop my projects that I hope to bring to fruition.
Yeah, that's amazing. So before we get into your stuff, say for someone who wants to be a storyboard artist or who kind of just wants to get into animation in general, but they have no idea where to start, what's like the first step that they should take, or what do you recommend they should do?
I'd say first, recognize what it is you're interested in and what it is you do, because it could be that you just really, really, really love to draw, but that doesn't necessarily mean, for example, that you would really, really, really love storyboarding. Because if you're someone that loves storytelling and loves drawing, then that's the perfect fusion. Awesome. Storyboarding is going to be where you can cut loose. Maybe you'd be best suited being a concept artist or a character designer or a prop designer, effects person. Maybe you're really, really, really technical, but you still love art and creativity. There's a role for you too. In the 3D pipeline, there's technical directors, there's people that do different, VFX type, related things where it's like, cool, jump in, you let your technical expertise go wild and apply your skills there. But start there with, what do you like? What are you interested in? What would you actually want to spend a career, a lifetime possibly doing? And then pursue that, because the painful situation to be in would be, okay, well, I guess I got to do this. And then you start throwing all this energy and effort, or you think that's all you can do, then come to realize down the line that's like, okay, you don't even half like that. Like, what are you,
right.
what are you spending what are you doing?
Yeah. Awesome.
And then from there, the channels are a lot less fuzzy than one might think, as far as, okay, let's say you do know what you want to do and what you want to be. Oh, I want to be a character designer. Where do I go next? These companies have recruiters on social media. They've got hiring portals, and then they've got credits, and there's IMDb. So you can always just follow these different threads and connect it to where you're trying to go. Look at the credits. This artist did this. Look at their work. Okay, let me at least study them and see what they do, study their influences, blah, blah, blah. Look at the hiring portal of the company that they're, it's a lot less fuzzy than perhaps maybe live action or comics or something like that.
Awesome. Cool. Well, yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. And, just everything you're accomplishing and continue to accomplish is amazing. Working at Marvel, that's a big thing that a lot of people want to accomplish.
That's a great thing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's a lot of pressure too, but
a lot of pressure, but really, really great. But also what I want to get into next, because Marvel, that's cool. It's whatever, I always love, to kind of figure out what whenever somebody has like you said, you mentioned your own side project and things you're kind of working on, because Spider-Man's been around for seems like 5 million years. All these great superheroes have all been around, but I think we're getting to a point where we need some new stories at the same time. So I always love when people, creatives as yourself are working and creating your own projects. So with that, I went to your website and I noticed on the front page you have a project you worked on called Dancing Machine. And you had 2 characters on there. It looked cool. It had kind of like a cool, like futuristic but retro feel at the same time. And I noticed you have a blog where you actually like detailed kind of like your process, which is really cool. Which, by the way, with that, everybody definitely check out Gerald's website. What was it? GeraldKaye.com?
Yeah. Thanks.
Gerald Kaye, GeraldKaye.com. Because what I really liked how you literally you detailed kind of your experience, and what you're going through. So there's a little bit more information there if you guys want to check that out. But right on the front page, I saw this dancing machine, and I was going through your blog to try kind of figure out more. But since I have you, just break down what is this project, because I am intrigued. I am intrigued what Dancing Machine's all about.
All right. Now, I'll say as much as I can without
spoil everything.
Too much.
Spoil everything.
Give it all. Just let the lid off. So Dance Machine started way back when as just this kind of joke that kind of came to me originally, where I was just kind of like, I have this kind of like running thing in my mind of kids and robots. There's like all these shows that I've watched over the years that take kids, pair them up with robots. And those are usually a lot of shows that I love, like Medabots. I don't know if you guys remember Medabots. That was on in the 90s. That's like my jam. Things like, I don't know, just go down the list of just the countless situations where kids and robots have popped, over the years, and Fooly Cooly, of course. And so I just had this like joke doodle that I did one day of some kids hanging out with the robot, et cetera, et cetera. Over the years, I just couldn't leave that joke doodle alone, and it changed completely in form and in scope from being this kind of like goofy thing to really taking it seriously. Like, okay, what kind of story would I want to tell that kind of, addresses that kind of icing element, that surface level element that kind of intrigued me, humorously, but then going deeper, what characters would be kind of motivational or kind of be willing, that you would want to latch onto or really be engaged and invested in. And so I really started to kind of drill down. And so ultimately I ended up developing and continuing to develop the story that really follows these two kids as they struggle with this concept of identity and self-worth, but from the standpoint of kind of skill. So Dancing Machine is in a setting where people form 3-man dancing squads and battle each other. It was inspired by I don't know if you guys watched Naruto, the Chunin exams.
I wasn't a big Naruto fan.
So back when I first started hearing about Naruto or whatever, because I didn't hear about Naruto really until like late high school, early college. But the part that kind of was dominating the public conversation was the whole Chunin exams arc. That was what they were in the middle of, which was these 3-man teams were going into the forest and having all these death matches and all this stuff was going on. And it was like, okay, all 3 teams had to complete this, all the teams with their 3 members had to complete a certain objective and blah, blah, blah. And it was really this really fun and interesting situation where you have an environment, you have all these groups of people with distinct, strong personalities who are trying to accomplish various goals with various motivations, all being kind of like thrust into each other and, compacting on each other and all the different things that kind of pop out of that. And so that really just kind of like lit up inside me, like, that's an interesting kind of setup or an approach to something. And so that gave birth to the world of Dancing Machine, where teams typically are 3 friends or 3 people who link up with common style, common goal, and they go and they compete, and there's tournaments and things like that. So that was like, okay, that was the next layer of, okay, where is this? What's going on? All right, now what's the actual kind of story that I want to tell? And that's where the kind of identity and self-worth thing kind of came in, where I was just kind of thinking about the idea that you have so many people on like social media these days, where it's like you've got yourself, let's say, as an artist, and you've got what you presented to the world on your Instagram or your Twitter, but then you've got a billion other artists next to you, some of whom are better, some of whom are worse, some of whom have way more followers, some of whom have way less, and all the different ways that kind of swirls around in the mind of people and how it affects them. And that was really an idea that I wanted to kind of like tap into and really explore. So Dancing Machine follows these 2 characters who, on the eve of one of the biggest tournaments that's going to be very significant as far as some personal goals they want to accomplish and some things that are lying before them, one of their members gets severely injured. And so there's in a rock and a hard place of, okay, do we back out of this tournament, this situation, or do we try to replace him in the time that we have left because the deadline's looming, et cetera, et cetera? And that's when they come across the robot. They meet a robot that has just this phenomenal level of dancing ability that they just can't comprehend or even understand what in the world, how is he able to do the things he does? Why is he so human-like and lifelike and more natural than any of the other robots in our society right now. It's a setting that's kind of near future, not too futuristic, but there's this level of like AI and robotics that I definitely introduced because robots, they're great.
Right.
So just really throwing around those things. And so it's really this situation that kind of brings all of these things to a head, to where their goals, their dreams, everything's right in front of them, but they just have to almost in a sense pull off a really huge bamboozle as far as convincing everybody that, hey, it's a guy in a suit, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah. I like that.
And so the layer on top of that is there's a fantasy and a kind of a sci-fi fantasy element that kind of makes battles a little more than just who did better. I guess it was the people that the crowd was cheering for the loudest. There's a way to really concretely tell who did better. And it's the person who's not injured or on the floor at the end of the day. When, you know, so that I'll reveal more as time goes on. But yeah, it's a story I've been kind of chipping away at. Really excited to get it done. And it's kind of what's demanding a lot of my artistic attention right now.
Right.
And your heart's in it. I always love when, I'm always comparing it to music and stuff, because I think all creatives were just in different environments. It's like when you played in somebody else's band, but now you got your own band, or you got your first solo album. I was with guys who were traveling with Anita Baker, and then they started becoming artists on their own. And it was wild to see what they became. And when I tell young kids, now he was just in a band when I met him. They go, what? Yeah, it was always here. He's waiting for his breakout moment, and you never know when the breakout moments come, but you're like, look, man, I got to get my own record. And it's scary as hell. It's scary as hell because, yeah, I'm making money over here. I might can make more money by myself, but like, I'm going to take all the hit. I'm going to take all the criticism. And now when I hire a band, maybe when that band starts dogging me, I realize, ooh, I was dogging the artist I was traveling with, because now I got to pay this band due per diem and realize, you know, man, I'm glad I got this other perspective. And it makes you respect the other person even more.
Yeah. And yeah, it's like, and along with that, it's like working in the machine and then doing something solo or whatnot, or developing something solo. It's like, there's all these points along the way where you're like, yeah, it would be great if I had a character designer right now. It would be great if I just kind of just keep at it and figure it out as you go along. But, you know, ideally and ultimately, there's definitely ways that I would welcome, you know, a certain degree of collaboration and things like that. But in the meantime, it's just like, well, I got to get it done because no one else can or will, because it's in my head.
Like Roy says, you start calling people, hey, if I get you a pizza,
develop those relationships.
It's your trade-off of what you do. It becomes the independent trade-off is always beautiful. I love when cats go independent, because if a guy works for you for no money, you know he loves what you do.
Right.
If I send you something, you're like, oh man, I'll do that. That means more to me than anything else, because you didn't have to do this. And I'd rather work with guys like that. Like, look, man, I knew you ain't got no money, but this needs to be done.
Absolutely. That's so cool. And so I'm assuming you're working on this. You want it to be a animated series, feature, or
so ideally, and my goal is for it to be an animated series. I've always been in love with that format of just long form serialized storytelling. Like when I was growing up, most of the things that really inspired me and like sparked me were things that were in the TV format rather than things in the movie format. I found myself like really getting hyped for shows and thinking about those shows a lot longer, almost to the same degree that maybe some people like, where some people like their watershed was like, oh my goodness, I remember Alien. For me, it's like, oh my goodness, I saw Fooly Cooley or Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, or, you know, things like that. That those things are the things that shape a lot of my sensibility. So I would want to do Dance Machine in that format. I like how when you tell a story like that, there's like this huge just impact when you get to certain moments, because you've been living with these characters over the course of like several hours, several months, several weeks, whatever.
Well, they're part of your life, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Johnny Quest.
Right.
Johnny Quest. Haji. Look, man, Haji was real to me. I'm sorry, man. Because Haji was this East Indian brother, and I peeped on him. And I said, he's riding around with Race and Banner and all these dudes. But Haji had the coolest name. Haji was, man.
That was a pretty cool
we
name.
identify with people, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, like I grew up on all of those like action adventure cartoons. You know,
Space Ghost.
I remember Space
Yeah.
Did
Ghost.
he have a
James
talk
Bond
show?
Jr.
Space Ghost got a
Coast to
talk show.
coast.
Space Ghost, coast to coast.
Had a talk show.
A talk show. Living the dream.
Right. I wonder what the pitch was like for that show.
Yo, Space Ghost. He's older now. He's old now.
He's settled down. He's done spacing. He's done
Right.
ghosting.
Yeah, he had his own talk show in the costume.
Right.
Yeah. So I definitely want to make something in that vein.
Yeah. I love that. And one of the last things I wanted to talk about, because your creativity, you could have just stopped there, but then there's this other area that I come to find out surprising to me, is that you also produce music.
Yes.
And I'll let you talk about it, because I'm very curious, but it's a very old school retro video game-esque style, and title's Phenomenal Star Force.
Yeah.
And first of all, just from the title alone, I was like, I already know the feels.
Yeah, you know,
I already know. And so I listened, because it's on Apple Music and Spotify and all that stuff, right? Yeah. And I was just like, yo, this is amazing. So tell me, how long you've been into music? How did you even get to that side?
So I'd say it goes all the way back to like my childhood or whatever. So growing up, well, first off, my parents are from Liberia, so they came to this country in their 20s, like late 20s, whatever, as immigrants. And so I grew up in this household where I was like, it was like a very interesting experience with all these influences kind of swirling around, because you had my parents who had a certain kind of like framework because of how they grew up, and then their perspective being immigrants. But then you had, I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters. So you have like the perspectives of all these different individuals at different stages of life, kind of like finding their way as now, Americans or whatever. I was born here, but still that kind of shaped a lot of things. So I was being influenced by like my parents playing like African music while I was growing up, while meanwhile my older brother and sister are like, listening to like the radio, 106.1 KMEL area, listen to hip hop or whatever. And then meanwhile, I'm like discovering things on my own. And so all of that's kind of like swirling and influencing me. And then plus all of us are like, to various degrees, for the most part, musical. So like my brother, he did drums when he was in band. I guess it's really interesting that in the 90s or whatever, being in the New Haven Unified School District, like it was almost like going to like an art school. As weird as that is, it was like a public school, but it practically wasn't art school. Just the amount of resources and the way that they encourage kids to, pursue things like art and theater and being creative. And so going into middle school, you had to either choose to do theater or do acting, or you had to choose an instrument and go into band. And so I chose like, okay, my brother's already doing drums, so I don't want to do that. My sister did trumpet when she was in middle school, so I don't want to do that. My other brother also did drums, so I want to switch it up. I'll do saxophone. So I played saxophone in middle school for 4 years. No, 3 years. No, 4 years. And so I did music in middle school, even going back to like elementary and when I was younger, I would listen to video game music from like Nintendo or Game Boy. And I would take the Game Boy and put it on like the cassette player and like record the songs that I liked so that I could listen to them later on, just play them back to myself, because I thought that the game music was so dope. So I was like just feeding off of so much. It was like swirling around. And so going into high school, I was like, well, I don't know if I want to do band anymore. I kind of want to see, what else, just leave my schedule open. I want to do more art stuff, draw more, et cetera, et cetera. So I stepped away from that. But then this kid came along just randomly out of the blue and introduced me to, at the time, it was called Fruity Loops. So,
yes.
Fruity Loops. No, it's still called Fruity Loops.
Yeah.
Fruity Loops is still used by hip hop heads and all the cats and track guys.
Yeah. So, it was, I think at the time it was version 3.1. So introduced me to Fruity Loops version 3.1. I was like,
man,
hey, music. I remember I love music. Yeah, I'll do, so I started kind of jumping back into that world. And so throughout high school, that stuff, if you ever heard it, it's horrid. I've got it all saved, but I'm like, I don't know who's gonna hear it.
Right.
It was definitely a time of kind of sanding off the rough edges and really developing. But did that while I continued to draw through high school and then through college or whatever, just continued to do it. And So 2014, I had this idea. There's this guy, his name is, I want to say it was Dave Harris. He goes by Blitz Lunar on Twitter. I think it was him, where on his website, he actually had some sound files from Kirby's Dream Land 3. Now, Kirby is one of my favorite game series. I think the music in Kirby is like some of the best music, like those composers, Jun Nishikawa and Hirokazu Ando. They're just like phenomenal composers that do like ridiculous stuff that you're like, this is a video game, but it's basically jazz slash hip hop slash they're going wild. And so this guy Dave Harris, he actually took the instrument samples from Super Nintendo Kirby Dream Land 3 and made a sample pack. And I was like, yo, I'll do an album inspired by it in the style of like Kirby music because I love Kirby music. And so I did Fantastic Star Friend. That was like the prequel album to Phenomenal Star Force in 2014. And then there's kind of like a bonus track at the end for the people who decided to like purchase it or download it. And there's like even like a little story that I wrote up to kind of go with the album or whatever, included as like a PDF and all that stuff. But basically the idea was at the end of this album, these kids go on this adventure, they save this little world that they're on or whatever. And if you get to the bonus track, you realize, oh, he let them go with them into space, or go with him into space and join him on their future adventures. Yeah. So years later, I was like, you know what? I want to revisit that. Time for the sequel. And so I did Phenomenal Star Force and was like, all right, where does the story go from here? And that's what gave birth to that.
Man,
dude, that's cool.
See, how your mind even works on that, man. Like,
dude, but you know what? Now, Royce being humble. It's funny how you two guys think alike. Royce did music. Royce played bass. He took piano lessons with jazz. He played bass. Then he picked it up. And then he played drums. Then he learned how to play keys. I said, and I mean, I'm like, I was a drummer, and now I got a saxophone sitting in the room. I'm trying to learn saxophone, trombone now. I'm learning bass, guitar, percussion, and trying to learn keys. Because I think music is I'm always something music ties everything in. Mm-hmm. But you and him are so alike in how it's not one thing. I think one thing inspires the other thing. It's crazy to hear that. And if I know if your parents are Liberia, that's some cool, the Liberian music. Now I started listening, and brothers from Senegal on that side, dude, some of the music they throw, now they're finally getting hip. Some of these cats are sampling the stuff. I said, man, quit sampling, bring them over. Let the cats play, because some of the African music is so funky.
It really is.
You see where we come from. We see why we don't know why we got this soul and why we have the essence of our soul, but it makes sense when you go back to motherland and say, oh, we don't even know, we're not even connected to it, but it still came with us.
Right.
Still came with us.
Yeah, for sure. And I just love how, like you were saying, I feel like for a lot of us, especially being a Blerd, how a lot of our work is some way, shape, or form tied to or inspired by hip hop as well. Because we were talking with Sanford Green, artist creator of Bitter Root, and he was saying he wanted to be a DJ and was heavily influenced by hip hop, which is reflected in his artwork. And I just think that's kind of like I feel like a recurring theme in for a lot of us is that some way, in somehow, shape, or form, music, but more specifically, I think hip hop always plays such a big role in that, which I think is really cool.
Even all the guys that would tag, all the artists that would tag and do different things, art was inspired by something. I think to be able to draw, let me tell you, I have no drawing skills whatsoever. I cried. I wanted to draw. Royce, was taking lessons. Royce actually, I think if he kept that way, there's so many things, but you know what? He doing the thing he wants to do. There was things he liked to play around with. Everything he tried to do, he picked up, he could do. Everything he tried to do, I said, I call him my Renaissance man. He's my Renaissance man. I look at you, you're a Renaissance man. I said, you guys are a generation that don't know limits. See, my generation, 64, nobody knew how to get to mark. Nobody knew. We would read comic books. How you draw a comic book? How you even get there? Black folks said, it can't be done. Can't be done. You try to tell your parents you're going to do a comic book? Man, my household, I'm going to do a comic book. Okay, all right. Mr. Comic Book. Because it wasn't a way to make a living that was thought about. Now, that's all real. It's all doable. It's all real. You tell kids I want to do that, you go, hey, I'll support that. What you need something to help you draw? Because it's real and it's tangible. and it can happen, you know. So I think
Yeah.
it's great that y'all grew up in the generation where it's not a dream killer. It's real reality, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that kind of ties into like I think it's really interesting where we are now in this year, because maybe this is a shared experience for both of you. Like some of the interests and some of the things that you might gravitate towards weren't always, you know, looked upon the most favorably, and sometimes even within our own community, so to speak, to where like I'm geeking out over like, yo, I just saw this anime movie that I rented from Blockbuster. People are like,
they're like,
okay, yeah,
don't bring him.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
Don't bring him.
You know, or like, oh man, I'm listening to like J-pop, the new Tada Hikaru for Kingdom Hearts. You know, or what was it? Kingdom Hearts 1, the that Simple and Clean. That was, you know, I'm like bumping Simple and Clean in the living room, like all these computer speakers or whatever. Like people are just kind of like, but now I feel like that is
like, oh, yo, hey. that's that thing. So now they go, oh yeah, are you hip to that? Even big old dudes. Oh, yo, man, you love that? It's funny.
Yeah.
How
things change, man.
He nerdy, man, but he cool now. Even now, yeah, man, he get the stuff. It's all right.
Yeah.
For everybody to ride together now. As a matter of fact, I mean, he needs to do this comic book for me. So now the cat that's all tough is like, yo, my man does comics. He can do animation. So now it's a bigger world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where you get beat up. Let's get this straight up. You got straight jack beat up.
Right.
With your little drawing book. They take your book. You know how hard it is to get your little book and tear your book up. I'm like, did you tear my man's book up?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't draw. It's really because they couldn't do it. See, back then it was more. I look back now. It was because cats dogged you. They couldn't do what you do. They couldn't see that art side of you, and it pissed off cats who couldn't be artistic.
Yeah.
So they jacked you up.
Yeah. But I'm right there with you, man. I used to bump the Halo soundtrack non-stop.
Right there.
Yeah, and it's funny because like my friend, we all loved playing Halo, but then it's just like I kept listening to it, and they're like, "Oh, so you're like, this is like on your iPod." I'm like, yes. It doesn't stop after I'm done playing. It keeps going.
Oh, nice. Oh, no, man, I feel you.
No, I love that, man. I love it, and thank you for sharing all this and your experience.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah,
for having me.
I don't want to take up too much of your time. Just have like a couple other, just little quick questions, just out of curiosity. So obviously, you're in animation. What would you say is your favorite cartoon and your favorite anime?
Favorite cartoon. I'd start with favorite anime because that one I feel like I can answer a little easier.
Okay.
I've got a rotating kind of top 5 that it's tough because it's like, okay, but then you got feature, but then you got TV and whatever. But
right.
Basically, Fooly Cooley, Gurren Lagann, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood are like a trifecta for me of like just really, really, really great shows.
Nice.
Porco Rosso, Whisper of the Heart, Castle of Cagliostro, another trifecta of just really, really, really great movies. And so those kind of like sit in my mind at the top. And as far as cartoons go, there's just too many that at this point it's kind of like blurred into this single like tapestry. Because like I'm telling you, like back when I was growing up, I watched, if it was on, and it's funny, me and my brother would be like, okay, are they fine? Is they fine? Okay, they're fine, cool, I'm gonna watch it, whatever.
Yeah.
So if there's any kind of action, we were there. And so
nice.
We were watching like everything under the sun. But I'd say that's something that I just want to quick shout out to that I really appreciate from the recent years was OKKO, Let's Be Heroes. I don't know if you guys saw that show. It was on Cartoon Network.
I never saw that, man.
I never watched it, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So good. It's hilarious, extremely creative. It's like you could feel the fun and the energy that the artists had behind this. And so of recent year stuff, that's one that definitely jumped up in my kind of attention. It like stood out to me.
That's awesome.
I think at my age at 64, I told Royce, I kind of fell off cartoons. I fell off comic books when the good guys became bad guys. When they had Bizarro Superman and Venom, I said, wait a minute, Spider-Man bad? It became hip. I think because we had superheroes for so long, they said the only place we go is make the superhero bad. And I was like, wait a minute, man.
Yeah.
Y'all gonna make my boy nasty? So now I'm more accepting of it because I think, well, what one big jump was the new generation didn't want to hear about just the good guys. I think they love the bad guys. I love bad guys too, because usually bad guys were supposed to be what we were as black people. So I always loved that cat anyway. But now it became there was no pureness. Like I always knew the good guy had a chance of winning. Now, good guy might die, and it changed my world up. And I just think kids like darker stuff. So I still look at. I haven't watched right now at this age. I catch myself late at night. A cartoon to come on, I don't know what it is. I'll be like this. Oh, that's kind of cool. I don't know the name of it.
Right.
I'll be like this. Oh, that's kind of cool. And it catches me that way. But there's nothing I seek out anymore, which is strange. At 64, I think you try and do so much.
Right.
that cartoon world would just take my life. Now I have nothing. For nothing. That's why I play video games.
Yeah.
Whereas I will not play video games. I'm like, I don't need it. I won't play golf. I will not have another addiction.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
my life.
You already watch like every single TV show out there in the world, so you don't have time to watch anything. You don't have time for cartoons.
That's why I suck on the saxophone.
Oh wow,
man! No, that's amazing. And lastly, I want to end with this experimental. We're going to see how it works, but in as few words as possible, kind of, if you can sum up, kind of like how what has growing up being a Blerd meant to you, or what lessons did it teach you?
I think that it probably really helped me cement my own sense of personality, sensibility, and individuality. Because growing up as a Blerd, it was like there'd be so many situations where I'd have this decision kind of thrown in my face of, do you go hard into the thing that you genuinely appreciate and like, or do you drop it and capitulate because you're being teased or made fun of, or it's being derided, looked down upon? So it's like, oh, you listen to video game music? Decision time. Yes, I do. Or no, man, I just, whatever.
No, that's whack, man. Nah.
Exactly. And so just over the years, it's just, in the beginning, as a younger kid, you kind of get, frustrated. Oh, they're making fun of me, blah, blah, blah. Or, oh, no one likes this. I'm the only one who's into blah, blah, blah. But as time went on, it's like, well, this stuff's cool. So their loss, that type of thing. Yep. And it really made me comfortable with the idea of, all right, I'm doing something or I like something. And even if it's not popular, and even if it's not, mass followers or whatever, just that's your style, that's your taste. Be cool with that. Yeah, and which I feel like is extremely important, especially with just how things are now and how much just is you see way more nowadays than you possibly could have, back in when I was growing up.
Right.
And so it really helped me because, like as I alluded to, even like my Black experience, so to speak, it may have been considered unorthodox, one, because of my immigrant parents, two, because of being into all this nerdy stuff that we're into. And so it's like, even that was a swirl where I was like, okay, now I feel even isolated within my isolation of my community. And so as I explored that, developed that over the years, I was like, it helped me recognize and realize that, hey, this thing it's a mosaic, everybody's adding their tile, and my tile is different than your tile, but it's all this beautiful thing together. So, hey, you're into like, you're a hardcore NFL like head, and every single stat, or you're like tracking every single NBA game, or you're, building model ship, whatever it is. It's like, that's just you, and it's still a part of, this whole or this thing. And that was kind of the lesson that being a Blerd, so to speak, kind of imparted on me, was, hey, you do you be you, and not so much to the extent and to the standpoint that you shouldn't be considerate of others and you shouldn't care about others, not that far, but hey, it's okay to kind of be in your lane and be comfortable with that.
Yeah. I
love that.
Wow, man, you almost make peace. I tell people make peace with. Like my son used to always come home like, man, I say, at some point, what's considered strange is gonna become the thing.
Yeah.
If you can make it through the ugly period young, I always tell young people, I'm not gonna tell you it gets better. People, oh, it gets better. Look, dude, you're gonna get Their ass whoop. For a second. That's why I think all Blerds know how to fight. I think every kid that does animation should be in martial arts. I really believe, because we like fighting stuff, I think every Blerd should be forced to like, okay, man, son, if this is what you're going to do, you got to learn how to fight. So they go like, yo, man, he's strange, but he'll knock you out. So you know what I'm saying? You got to find your way to make that happen.
Yeah.
Nope.
Absolutely. Well, Gerald, thank you so much, man, for joining us on Blerd Empire. Learned a lot. Hopefully you guys listening, any aspiring animators, you guys have learned a lot. He's definitely dropped a lot of gems.
Oh, yes.
Gerald, let everybody know where they can keep up with you at. Instagram, Twitter, where is the best place they can follow you?
All right. So when it comes to social media, I'm most active on Twitter. So that's I'm at TechAxe. That's TEKKAXE. I'm sure you can write it somewhere because I'm like probably not going to remember that.
No, well, I'll have it actually displayed on when.
Okay,
when
cool.
Yeah.
So Twitter at TechAxe.
No, for me, give it. It's TEKK.
TEKKAXE. So like TechAxe.
Okay.
And then on Instagram, I'm a little less active, but I'm still kind of active. It's at Gerald Kaye. So it's just my name.
Mm-hmm.
And then my website. So if there's any kind of update, I'll put it there for sure. Even if you don't check any of the social media or whatever, it's geraldkaye.com, and that's where you'll find out about Dancing Machine once I really start letting the lid off, because a lot has happened since the last blog post.
Nice.
But yeah.
Now, I have a question. Being an animator, because me and my son talk about it all the time. I fight about Instagram. I'm on there because they tell me I have to be there. I fight, dude. Gerald, I fight. I'm trying. And then I can't do the story. I don't know which thing do I make a story. I can't, my brain, so they do that as a story and do that as I said, I'm gonna put the same thing on the story that I put on. They go, no, you gotta make it different. It's too many choices. Now, I'm a Twitter man. Most of my people, it's funny, I'll go live because Instagram Live got the double switch, but Twitter seems to be that I can get the thing out fast and I'm done. Why do you pick Twitter? As a person who does art, well, that's where Instagram is supposed to be standing out. Why do you do Twitter more?
It's weird. Like for me, the thing that appealed to me about Twitter was this illusion of interaction to where, hey, if I tweet at this person, they might reply. And if I tweet something, they might reply. And it's like this illusion of, or potential for conversation. I was like, yeah, I'll go hard into that, or I'll invest in that. Especially because the way that I like to draw and do my artwork, I'm not so much like the illustrator type to where I'm like, okay, here's the illustration I did today. Boom. Here's I'm more, hey, I saw, this is an interesting movie that's, that I'm watching right now, or hey, I'm working on this, or hey, Marvel's about to drop this episode of Spider-Man on Sunday. Exactly.
Conversation, right?
Yeah. So I kind of like the idea of that more. Like, there's even some folks that, like, on the music front, from like the kind of video game music arena, that I was able to just ping them and they ping me back. It's like, cool, I talked to this person and they responded. Awesome. So it feels like there's a little bit less of a barrier. But at the same time, there's still like you can kind of maintain a distance if you want to, which for me, it's like this is a healthy distance that I want to kind of keep all that stuff. So
nice. That's
Instagram,
admirable.
Look at me. Instagram, look at me.
Yeah, Instagram.
Look at me.
It's the show-off platform.
Look at me.
God, sometimes it's like that.
Yeah. Well, to keep up with us, you can go to Instagram. You can follow us at Blerd Empire. And we're at Blerd Empire, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Me personally, I'm at Roro Beckley. Sinbad's at Sinbad Bad. If you add him on Instagram, he'll be mad at you. Talk to him on Twitter instead.
You can come. If you go to my story, it's the same thing. You're going to get the very same thing, because I ain't got time to split all that crap up.
Exactly. Again, Gerald Kaye, thank you so much for talking with us, sharing your experience.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dropping that
knowledge. Man. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, until next time, we'll catch you later.
Cool. Peace.